took a trip to Washington, D.C. I was speaking. I don't even remember what the event was called. It might have been U.S. Patriots, retired Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Bob Bowman, who used to be the head of the Department of Defense under, I believe it was Carter and Ford. He became a whistleblower and an activist. He's passed away since then, but I believe it was an event where he was headlining, and we gave a talk at Independence Hall. And yeah, like I said, there was just a handful of student activists back then. It seemed like student activism was dying. So I'm just so proud to see a resurgence of youth standing for rights, standing for humanity, using their voices to represent the others whose voices are being suppressed right now, and using your privilege in such a powerful way.
All right.
So we're excited to hear what you have to share with us today, Auntie Susan.
Well, I will introduce myself traditionally. My name is Susan Reece-Meshekey. I am the daughter of Lillian, who carries the clan Meshekey and the family name Meshekey, means turtle in Adawa. My mother's people is from a little place called the Land of the Crooked Tree, along the shores of present-day Lake Michigan. A part of the Anishinaabe, part of the Three Fires is a confederacy. My father is from Ganawage, which is a reserve about 20 miles north of Montreal, part of the League of Five Nations. We just finished a 23-day Great Law Peace recital. So a lot of information, and in light of what's happening here worldwide, I think it's really important that we change the narrative. The press is really grabbing on to protest, the words protest, the words demonstration. I think we need to change some of those words into what's really going on. The young people are actually speaking to the world. They're saying by their actions, and I don't think they're really conscious of it, but from my perspective, what they're saying to the world is to their mother, to their father, to their family, and the community that they have been lied to from the time that they were born. And the young people now are speaking up and saying, we're not going to put up with it anymore. That what is happening in the world is genocide, the murder of women and children. And it is a war. And certainly with Native people, who's finished a podcast talking about this, for the last 530 years, we have been in a war. That war has never ended. What's happening in Palestine is a direct continuation of that. The Palestinian people have been going through exactly what we've been going through all this time. And the university students need to know and reckon with the reality that they are telling their parents, you are liars. And the reason they are liars is because they have fed into this war machine by paying taxes, by paying their mortgage, by engaging in corporations that contribute to what's been going on in the world, and specifically the genocide in Palestine and in other places of the world too. This is going to be a very difficult reality to face. But that's what's really going on here. The students really need to look at genocide and keep saying genocide and really figuring out what that means. They need to face the fact that their parents have lied to them, that the university, which is supposed to be a place of higher learning, has lied to them. And now education has no business investing any money in war. Before any of this happened, there shouldn't have been any kind of investment at all. Yet, even when there was apartheid, the students brought to the knees of the UC regents, demanding they divest from South Africa. That's precisely what happened. Same with the Vietnam War. Students have a tremendous amount of protections. The problem is that the United States, the universities are breaking their own rule of law. I would recommend that those students who are out there, those students who haven't stepped forward yet, those students of law, those law students really need to take on a different role, doing their own legal research, finding what codified laws exist in terms of student rights and responsibilities. Students have a tremendous legal power. The only problem is that you folks don't know how powerful you are, much less exercising those rights. And the universities don't want you to know. They don't want you to exercise your own power. They are in turn violating rule of law, and they need to be held accountable for it. Now we'll take the example of Columbia University. I did a little cursory research on Columbia. Columbia is considered to be a private institution. I always thought it was public. Maybe its status has changed over the years, but now it's considered a private institution, nonprofit. Now that's an interesting combination. Nonprofits are public entities because they receive grants, public monies from the state and federal government. Okay. Each state has its own set of rule of law regarding corporate entities, nonprofits. They're pretty much the same nationwide. It's important for those law students to really look at that. What are the laws regarding nonprofits? And find out what rule of law the university now is breaking. Another part of this is the president of Columbia is, interestingly enough, noted in their board of trustees. Cannot be a board of trustees and a college president at the same time. The board of trustees hire the administration. That's the pecking order. The governing body, as in the state of New York, as well as everywhere else, we have an institution of higher learning. The Board of Trustees is the one that hires and fires administration. So a law student needs to look at that and find out why her name and her picture is in with the Board of Trustees. She's not identified in that list as being the president. That's an interesting quirk, even for them. Where you need, and this is across the board, where you need to, what you need to look at is you're barking up the wrong tree. That president has little to no power. She's the talking head with a Board of Trustees, but she's not telling you that. You need to address the Board of Trustees. They're the governing body. You need to look at the nonprofit status of Columbia University. There is a way in which you can bring them down. You can take their corporate status away from them, not only on your own merits as individual students, but you can do it through the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education is a regulatory body. Any breaking of rule of law after they investigate is typically handed over to the Department of Justice. And if there is any criminal activity there, that's where they do further investigation and a subsequent prosecution. Again, the law student, if you get the law students involved, they're going to find out the ramifications of all this. Now, when I was a student at UC Berkeley, I saw it all. No, I got to stand back. I get a little bit more honest. I didn't see it all. I started school in 1971. But still, movements were being born. Infrastructure was still being built. I had come in as a result of what's called the Third World Strike. And it was a student movement to allow people of color to come into an Ivy League institution like UC Berkeley without the benefit of the SAT test. That was a way in which the UC system could keep out people of color. At the same time, the ethnic studies field was born in the streets of Berkeley. The Third World Strike, they brought in the National Guard. They shot 3 students dead. Because they gave up their life, I was allowed to go to school without the benefit of the SAT. I had a horrible GPA in high school. I barely made it through. But I got in, and subsequent to that, the ethnic studies field, the field of ethnic studies, was actually built, created, and born on the streets of Berkeley on Telegraph Avenue. During that time, and now, I don't know when they took it out. During that time, they had riot lights on Telegraph Avenue. And these riot lights were strobe lights capable of putting everybody into electroconvulsive shock. Now, I think it was used during the Third World Strike, but I'm not certain. To this day, I don't know the names of the 3 students who gave up their lives. So I and many others could go to school. Every movement in the world seemed to have a birthplace at Berkeley. At the time, UC was number 2 in the nation and was only beat out by Harvard. And it enjoyed that status for a very long time. Now I think it's 4 or 5. Some, you have to do your research and find out. The strategy that I want to speak to, it's different now. The saving grace that you folks have right now is your numbers. The old strategies, that's what we have too, the numbers. But now, in 2024, the strategies have to be different in order for it to continue and for it to last.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be different strategies. And when you're barking up the wrong tree like that president, you're focusing in on her and the rest of the administration, when in fact you should be focusing in on the board of trustees. Find out their names, where they live, organize peaceful silent vigils. All there is a candle and a person, and you do relay silent vigils 24/7. Certainly got enough people there to do it. Very effective. You find out where they live. You make it personal. Things are not going to change unless you make it emotional and very personal. You have to get to their soul in order for them to even begin to look at what they're doing. They can hide, they can go home and hide with their family, their friends, their relatives, and tell a completely different story. And a very convincing one, I might add. The only way that you can actually destroy that by the truth, by telling the truth, is to be there. Be there in front of their house. Follow all local ordinances in the spirit of peace. Everything has to be done peaceful. That's another part of this. And you stand there with media in tow. Have your signs if you want. But not a peep. Don't yell. You don't scream. You let your silence do your talking for you. Your silence will be deafening. Why? Well, you'll be doing it in front of their wives, their husbands, their children, their relatives, their neighbors, their friends. Their house will be on the 6 o'clock news. Picture of their house. And as long as you don't block sidewalks or streets and you're quiet, there'll be less of an opportunity for so-called law enforcement to come in there and break you up. As long as you're not violating our ordinance or local law, they have no right to remove you. And you just set up, you find out who these trustees are, and you go to their homes. And you set up that relay 24/7. And you're peaceful. They have to know, the world has to know the difference between peaceful people and people who are at war. And if you're fighting somebody, you're fighting the police in there, you're not going to, the world's not going to know the difference. That's the change here that's necessary. And then you start organizing behind all of that, bringing in injunction, doing whatever you can to stop them using their own rule of law against them. But you have to know what that rule of law is. Your law students can be invaluable to this. It's another strategy. Back in the day, there used to be what's called a phone tree. And what phone trees are, it's just organizing people. And you have a list of people you call. Let's say someone has a list of 25 people. You start calling all those 25 people. Those 25 people call with how many other people they have on their list. They in turn will call however many people they have on their list. It will exponentialize itself very quickly. Even in the light of media and all of that, personal contact, the voice, is what can make the difference. There's another strategy, and I haven't said anything public about it yet, but I will. The IRS keeps track of all births, all human births. You're assigned a number every human birth, and it goes to the state. And you're worth, 4 years ago, you were worth $1 million. If you get into trouble, criminal, this is a great example, and a criminal case is lodged against you, the prosecutor wins the case, somebody gets that $1 million. They're not after the people, they're after the $1 million. What you're worth, what your head is worth. Now, this was told to me by a person who is considered to be a constitutional expert. And in the old days, I'm told, people in law school 60 and up were taught this, but they don't teach that in law school anymore. It's a well-guarded secret. So you get arrested. You don't tell them your name. Hopefully you won't have any identification on you. You have that in check. You have it kept with a trusted person, your birth certificate, all of that. And then when it's time for you to be arraigned, the judge will say, "Are you John Smith? Are you Joan Smith?" And what you do is you stand up and you say, "Your Honor, and hold up your birth certificate." You've got to have your birth certificate in your hand. Hold up your birth certificate and say, "I'm here on behalf of the defendant." The judge will look at you and you tell the judge that the birth certificate in your hand is the defendant. Never admit that you are John Smith or whatever name you call it. Never admit in a court of law what your name is. But you can stand in behalf of the defendant with your birth certificate. Your birth certificate is what they're after when they arrest you. Now, there's a reason. There's a reason why this isn't taught in law school. But check it out. If it can be checked out. I don't know whether it can or not. But you have to say, "I'm here on behalf of this birth certificate." And then have the bailiff take the birth certificate and hand it to the judge. Now, a lot of judges won't know this, but I'm told there are enough judges even now they're aware of it. When that happens, legally, they're supposed to stop all the presses. They can't go any further than that. And then they have to figure out what they're going to do. I haven't seen it tried. Again, you're going to have to do your own research to confirm it. But it's certainly well worth finding out about. For those who don't have that information, or who don't want to impart that information, or even if the information I'm giving you is wrong, you still stand there. You don't admit your name, and you say, I stand mute. You refuse to take part in the corruptive criminal justice system that you're being forced in front of. It's another way of refusing to take part in the war machine. I would like to see it in action. I really would. It's worth the research, and it's worth having guts and integrity to move forward on it. And that is a very brief recommendations. There's more to this, but I'm going to save that for my podcast. I just finished one here on Hollywood. I want to do another one. It will be on missing and murdered, but I will be introducing that information on that podcast at a greater length. For students, that's a good place to start. Refuse to take part in the war machine. Refuse to say your name. Refuse to even tell them what your name is. And they'll threaten you with jail, but they're going to threaten you with jail anyway. So, it won't have any meaning. But again, you're going to have to be willing to put yourself on the line, even be willing to give up your life for it. Because that's what you're being confronted with anyway. You guys are putting yourselves, your life on the line, and we all know it. Right. Also, this is a third recommendation. You find out wherever the university resides, you find out whose ancestral land that is, who native ancestral land that belongs to. Because we all know that every bit of Turtle Island, north, south, east, and west, the north and the southern hemisphere, is stolen land. All of it is. So it is within law for you to find out where this university, what land, what territory this university sits on. You humbly go to those people. They may not be used to that. You go there anyway. And you ask permission to be at Columbia University, to be in Austin, Texas, wherever that institution is. You ask them. It's all right for you to be there. And if they have a flag, ask them to fly that flag and exercise their sovereign power over their own territory. This is a second new kind of level that can be had. It's very possible, depending on how strong or even how weak that native nation is. You're not going to find everyone wanting to do that, because they already know what that means. They already know that their lives can be put at risk too.
That's right.
But for us as Native people, this is how we can work together. And I want to thank each and every one of you as a young person and as those older people who have put themselves at risk in supporting the young people that are actually putting their lives on the line. You're also doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
You're also giving up the corruption and exposing it for what it really is. And those are the recommendations that I will give you. And again, my email will be made available. Contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Auntie Susan, for sharing your experience, your lived experience, and your wisdom and knowledge with us today. And we will have, like Auntie Susan said, another podcast that we'll be recording possibly tomorrow or the next day for MMIW Day on May 5th. We'll try to get that up in time for MMIW Day, MMIR Day. So thank you for following the Rematriation Station. Stay tuned for more resources to help us shift into a future that includes all of us. Leolina, thank you.
I'd like to make one final statement, if I may. For all of us to win, we must honor the women in our communities, the life givers. We have a sacred title and responsibility. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. It's our mothers. It's our girl children. It's our grandmothers. We all hold that sacred title. And it's not just human. It's all strains of life across the board. We have to start thinking of ourselves in a different way and really go back to the beginning. So I want to commend each and every one of you for taking the risks that you're taking and exposing the corruption and the barbarism of the educational systems. You're actually helping heal that wound. So my blessings, my good wishes to all of you, all my relations.
Leolina, thank you, Auntie Susan. Stay tuned until next time, and we'll be back with more resources for rematriating and healing the collective mother wound that we're all affected by. Until next time.
Much.